Are the Los Angeles Dodgers ruining baseball? And what exactly are their spending habits this offseason saying about the Boston Red Sox and theirs? All of that will be answered on today's Locked on Red Sox.
You are Locked on Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut Maljanian, really just Gabby Maljanian, but if you are not familiar with that yet, I may also be known to you as Gabby Hurlbut, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, it's completely free. So you might as well tune in because Locked On is your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Hello and welcome to the show. Happy Thursday. Thank you for being here with me. And the biggest question surrounding Major League Baseball right now is, are the Dodgers ruining the sport? Are what they have been doing this offseason and the roster that they're building, is that taking away from what the sport is all about in terms of competitiveness? I'm going to be answering that question on today's show, but this is a Red Sox podcast, so don't you worry. We are going to be talking about a lot of things related to the Red Sox, because what do the Dodgers spending habits say about the Red Sox spending habits, or lack thereof, if that's how you want to look at it, this offseason? So I'm going to be touching on that, as well as how the Red Sox could balance their spending a little bit more, and examining that 2018 Red Sox roster and how exactly they built that roster and the breakdown of players that they had and where they acquired them from. And then discussing how the Red Sox can respond to all these crazy moves that the Dodgers are making. But that question in itself, are the Dodgers ruining baseball? Now, keep in mind that we've seen teams be dominant before. The Red Sox and Yankees both used to get whatever player they wanted, literally, and they would spend money and get all of these free agents. And that's kind of what the Dodgers are doing now, is they're spending all this money because they want to win. And I asked this question, I posted it on both Instagram and Twitter, and I got some great responses, people going back and forth on different things or being mixed with different opinions on this. And I think that's great. So Sean Tedford, shout out to him, gave me a response on Instagram. They should implement a cap space like they do with the NFL instead of the luxury tax. Right now for the Dodgers, they have about $375 million for the 2025 luxury tax. They have about every big name player you can think of, like Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, just to name a few. Also, they are closing in on a deal with Kirby Yates. Dodgers, the Yankees of the West Coast. I mean, very true. Dodgers definitely are the Yankees of the West Coast. They're absolutely stacked right now. Several people responding. James Murphy on Instagram, shout out to him, one of my good friends from college. Leagues need villains, which does fuel that fire a little bit more in terms of rivalries of everybody rooting against the Dodgers, kind of for the entertainment aspect of the sport, makes for a better collective watch in terms of having that team that you really want to root against. So I definitely could see a point there that he's trying to make. Pub God Sean, I feel every team can do the exact same thing as the Dodgers. It just takes the guts and ambition to do it. There was a time when the Red Sox and the Yankees would essentially get everyone and anyone they wanted. The Dodgers have gotten creative. I'm just wondering when others will follow suit. The Red Sox could certainly do this if Henry would wake up. That's a common theme that I've been getting as well, and I'm going to be touching on that a lot more in depth in a little bit here. James Celestin, shout out to him. Very nice guy that I've interacted with a lot on Twitter and Instagram. We've done podcast episodes together before. I think the Dodgers are showing what happens when ownership wants to win. The Yankees used to do that under George, and if any other team does this, no other fan base would be complaining, and eventually deferred money will catch up to them at some point, which is very true. They are going to have to pay all these contracts later on when these guys are no longer in the league, and that's going to catch up to them because they won't at that time be able to commit to this crazy number of all-star caliber players that they have on the team now. Justin Desering on Instagram, other owners don't want to give guys contracts, which is 100% true. I mean, the Dodgers are committed to winning and other teams are not showing that they are. Randy Ozga, always a good time interacting with him too. Shout out to him. He's been one of my biggest supporters since the beginning. So thank you for that. He said, yeah, it's just like the Yankees did in their run. Sign all the good players to win all the World Series that they could. I lived through that. Finally, the Red Sox started to get more good players that they could compete with them. Yes, the Yankees did it, and it was absolutely painful, and they literally could get whoever they wanted, and it sucked. Ben Cruz on Instagram. I don't think it's ruining the sport because if it was your team, you wouldn't complain. However, I will say it gives very small market teams at such a disadvantage for not being able to improve their team if there's one big market team getting a ton of players. Absolutely agree 100% with that as well. Jordan Rosario, it's creative future strategy for teams moving forward. Yes, that's very true. He is saying essentially that it's showing other teams what the model should be moving forward for how they go about addressing their free agency. Keon, no, they value winning. The silence and lack of other owners is more deafening. 100%. The Dodgers are setting the tone here, sending a message to other owners like, you have money. Why aren't you spending it? It's so true. Sean Brooks, they are doing what's within the rules, so it's not wrong. Yep. I mean, quite literally, they are not breaking any rules here. Brandon McCollery, Gabby, I don't see how they are. Now, is it laughable? Yes. Every pass and tweet is the Dodgers have signed ... with 90% of the contract deferred. True. But ruining, no. They built a winning culture. They are doing what every other team wishes they could do. The Yankees have done this before, and they didn't ruin the sport. They became the evil empire. We've seen teams do it in the past. That's the thing that's beautiful about the sport, though. They've won 2 World Series in the past decade and failed to live up to the hype in the postseason. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Last thing I will say, not every team has the same opportunity to defer money like they are. Sure, they can, but players want to play for LA now. It's almost like you want to play for us. Well, you got to defer half your contract and the player accepts. Other teams don't have the leverage the Dodgers have to defer money. Again, also very true. Derek Delare, he has interacted with me about a lot of baseball stuff before. This is a big two-parted question. Question 1, is it ruining baseball? It hasn't. If anything, it's shown exactly what a team can do if they're smart and their payroll department works creatively, not to mention their players willing to lose $25 to $35 million a year to sign someone who can ultimately push you to the playoffs. That's not an MLB problem. For example, it's a Freddie Freeman problem if he says, I'll take X of my salary now to sign Roki Sasaki. You guys pay me Y after I retire to take care of my family. The other part is just because the Dodgers are buying all these players doesn't mean after 162, they'll be the best team in the West. We've seen that in recent years. 6 of the last 25 World Series winners finished the season with the best overall record. What everyone misses is good players cost money. If you don't want to watch baseball because you think my team has no shot, then don't watch it. All it takes is 3 or 5 of these Dodgers to get hurt, and we could be seeing something like we saw in 2023, and a team like the D-backs who are only a bullpen and a few pitchers away from a run take off. In 2023, Arizona was 20th overall in payroll and finished second in the West and still played for a World Series. Very valid points here. Never a sure thing in baseball. Dalia Perez, Dodgers have money and they're willing to spend it. Other teams rather pocket the money than invest in getting better players for their teams. Simple as that. Absolutely 100% in agreement here. Sean Peltier, while to be fair, they are working within the system, they are essentially utilizing a loophole. The existing CBT we know does not really create a level playing field, but it helps. The Dodgers have gone beyond that, and it's just absurd. Sometimes you need to make or revise rules. Now is the time. 100% this is on Major League Baseball to change some things. Ben Abe had a lot of thoughts on this that he had to say. Essentially, not feeling like the Dodgers ruin baseball. The Dodgers are doing exactly what most fans dream of they're doing, spending their money to field the best possible roster. Yes, a lot of people want their teams to be that exact way and run that exact way. So why are people upset with the Dodgers for doing this? Teams are unwilling to do so. I agree 100%. Matt Price, I don't think they're ruining the sport. They talk to players like other teams do, and the players want to win. With the talent LA has right now, it's no surprise so many great stars want to play with Mookie, Freddie, and Shohei. Plus, the competition gets a whole lot more interesting. 100% yes. John Murphy Jr., the deferments kicking the can down the road on those big contracts is nonsense, though. The rich get richer. I'm a Mets fan, and they just signed Juan Soto to a record contract. To me, baseball needs a salary floor and force cheapskate owners of other franchises to spend money. hate the game, not the player. Very well said. Also, Tucker Rosscon here on Instagram. No shade on the Dodgers. They are just taking advantage of flaws in the MLB system. It's what the Oakland A's must have felt like competing for years against the Red Sox and Yankees. I'm sure Red Sox fans are jealous that the Sox aren't spending like the Dodgers. Yes, I 100% wish the Red Sox would spend more money. That is true. Just a few more here. John Acevedo, it's not ruining baseball, but it is annoying. This is on the other owners, though. A lot of them are being cheap and pointing the finger at the Dodgers. Every owner can do what the Dodgers are doing, and they choose not to. Yep, that is also 100% too. Sports World 13 on Twitter. Salary cap needed. Yep, possibly. Maddie B, yes, those who are ring chasing are going to tell their agents get them to LA compared to other teams who are also World Series contenders. Pretty soon, just about every big name free agent will want to go to LA and not even care about other teams who are rebuilding or right in the thick of things. I agree 100%. Why would they go elsewhere when they have the sure thing with the Dodgers? Sports News Nerd. I don't think so. Their ownership group has maximized the potential of their budget via a great media deal and hired the right people on the baseball operations side. It's not LA's fault if other big market clubs don't want to spend in free agency. Yep, it's not. Joshua Brown, my guess is a large majority of those who voted yes would have probably been on the other side had their team done what the Dodgers did. I know I would have been ecstatic if the Red Sox did it. William Griffin, they are investing in their team. They want to win. Other teams like the Red Sox choose to sit on their considerable assets and spend nothing. Maybe I don't want the Red Sox to spend like the Dodgers, but spend on a right-handed bat and a closer. Spend the bleeping money. Word for word is what he said. That's awesome. Kevin Pickett, it's on the owners for giving out these ridiculous contracts. So as you can see, there are a lot of mixed opinions on it. But ultimately, in summary, from a lot of that, what a lot of people were saying is the Dodgers are doing what every person dreams of their team doing. And what does this honestly say about the Red Sox and their spending habits or lack thereof? It shows that the Red Sox have a lot more work to do and are capable of doing what the Dodgers are doing. They're just choosing not to because John Henry has the same kind of money that the Dodgers have. He is just choosing to not invest in all of this high caliber talent right now because instead he is trying to bank on some of his prospects panning out, which you can do to an extent, but you also need to balance that out with more experienced veteran players. And what the Dodgers are doing right now is massively exposing other rich owners like John Henry for not going and doing that. And if I'm Henry right now, I'm sitting here saying, wow, the Dodgers are going out and being aggressive and getting players that they know can help them win a championship. I should be doing the same thing. And John Henry has not shown in the last few seasons that he's anywhere close to willing to do that. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about the idea of balanced spending and what exactly the Red Sox 2018 World Series roster looked like that dominated everybody. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming game using the Game Time app. With Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. If you're ever looking for tickets to games or any live event, I promise you Game Time is the way to go because it will not disappoint. And it's also cheaper than other ticketing vendors I've found. You'll save a lot of money, especially if you have a family of 4 or 5, maybe you and your significant other and your kids don't want to go to the game. It can get really pricey. So definitely go to Game Time and check out their pricing because you can also get really good seats that they don't always have on other vendors. Once you start using Game Time, you just won't look back. It's so true. Are the LA Dodgers ruining baseball? My answer to this is no. And like I talked about before, it puts owners like John Henry in the hot seat. It makes them look at themselves and say, hey, why am I not spending this type of money too? The Boston Red Sox are one of the richest owners and franchises in baseball. They can pay for these free agent high caliber players. They just have chose not to over the last few seasons because they wanted to focus on the farm system, which also is good for sure. You want to develop guys internally within your system, but you also want a mix of superstar talent, veteran talent that's proven to pair with those guys to build a contending team. It's called balanced spending, meaning you have a mix of guys that are homegrown that you developed through your system to show that your farm system is reputable, so that it gives guys in the farm system the confidence that they'll be able to go through the system and reach their goal of playing Major League Baseball. So you find a good balance of those guys that get to the majors and are successful through your system, but you also go out and spend money on players who are veterans, who have been around the sport and have seen success for years in a variety of areas and on different teams that can come and help lead your team to a championship. And that second part of it, the coupling it with veteran players, is what the Red Sox are missing out on. So if we take a look at the Red Sox 2018 roster, they had a mix of guys that they built on that roster, whether it was through the draft, free agency, or trade. So in the draft, some of these guys were homegrown players. Matt Barnes, homegrown, part of a stacked UConn class in 2011, which produced two other big league regulars in George Springer and Nick Ahmed. Barnes was a consistently good pitcher for the Red Sox and a big part of that 2018 team. He was emerging as a really reliable setup man, and he was fantastic for the Red Sox. Andrew Benintendi, a homegrown guy who won that World Series with the Red Sox as part of that star-studded outfielder. During his draft year at Arkansas, he hit 376 with a 488 on base percentage and 717 slugging with 20 home runs and way more walks, 50, than strikeouts with 32. And he was selected in the first round as a draft eligible sophomore. And he absolutely was a huge threat, both offensively and defensively, on that 2018 team. Mookie goes without saying, one of the best players in the sport to this day. Very versatile, could do so many different things, was a remarkable defender, but also could hit the ball really well. He came up through the Red Sox system and was a big part of that team. Jackie Bradley Jr., he was drafted in that same class as Barnes was drafted. And obviously he struggled at the plate during his time with the Red Sox, but boy, could this man play defense. And he had some legendary catches in the outfield that saved the Red Sox season multiple times. And there were so many different scenarios, not even just in 2018, but other years too, where we can think about JBJ making these huge plays. Another player that was drafted that the Red Sox developed through their system. Blake Swihart, another one who was drafted by the Red Sox. He didn't get as much playing time because the Red Sox already had their catching situation kind of covered, but he did serve as more of a backup catcher on an as-needed basis. But he was also drafted in 2011, and his versatility and switch hitting bat came in pretty handy off the bench for the Red Sox. Christian Vasquez, drafted in 2008 by the Red Sox, and he was so upset when he got traded because he saw himself being with the Red Sox for the entirety of his career. But the point is, he was drafted and developed through the Red Sox system and made a huge impression and was massive in that World Series run. Brandon Workman, really strong reliever that was a great part of that run, was drafted in 2010, and he was very reliable as a middle reliever, thanks to his curveball, which was his specialty pitch that he utilized in Boston. So those guys were homegrown players that were part of that 2018 team that really helped them to find success. Then via trade, they traded for Nathan Eovaldi at the 2018 trade deadline for lefty pitching prospect Jalen Beeks. And Eovaldi was obviously legendary in that postseason run. Nobody's ever going to forget that 18-inning game where he pitched basically a full game of baseball, and so many teams wanted him after that. But they don't win that World Series without Eovaldi. Keith Hembry, they traded for also during their last place season in 2014. They unloaded several veterans at the trade deadline, most notably shipping John Lester to the A's and Andrew Miller to the Orioles. They also sent Jake Peavy to the Giants for relief prospects Keith Hembry and Edwin Escobar. And then Hembry spent a lot of time as a depth reliever in Boston, where he threw lots of innings and ended up with around a 3.45 ERA. So he struggled in some cases with the Red Sox, but in general, he was a good reliever for this team to have. Brock Holt, acquired from the Pirates in December of 2012 and proved to be one of the most impactful reliever trades in recent memory, because he was essentially a throw-in as the sixth most notable player in that 6-player trade. The Red Sox acquired him and Joel Hanrahan for Mark Melanson, Ivan DeJesus Jr., Jerry Sands, and Stolme Pimento. So essentially, there were lots of pieces thrown into that trade, but Brock Holt was a great high-end utility player for the Red Sox and went on to hit for the first cycle in postseason history in ALDS Game 3 against the Yankees that year. So Brock pretty much did it all, and he was also a good clubhouse leader. They also traded for Joe Kelly. He was somebody who had very much a lot of ups and a lot of downs in his time with the Red Sox. He did spend some time in the rotation before settling in as a reliever, sometimes in high leverage, and he did have some performance issues late in the regular season that relegated him to middle relief in the postseason, but his fastball averaged 98.5 miles an hour, and when he was on, he was on. Like, that guy was so dominant, like near unhittable on nights that he was on, and he for sure had some great moments in that postseason. Craig Kimbrell, acquired from the Padres in November 2015, and the Red Sox needed a closer, and boy, did they get a closer, one of the best in the game at the time. He was an all-star for several seasons with the Red Sox, and he closed out games 4 and 5 of the ALCS to send the Red Sox to the World Series. Yes, he had some scary upside down moments, giving up lots of base traffic, but he would get the job done, and he was super reliable as a closer for the Red Sox. Ian Kinsler was traded that year at the trade deadline in 2018, and he helped solidify the Red Sox infield defense and provide a veteran lineup presence. So he wasn't somebody who played all the time for the Red Sox, but definitely was important to that run because he provided a lot of different things from a versatility standpoint. Sandy Leon, another catcher, acquired from the Nationals in March 2015, struggled at the plate, but he was a very good defender and was known for his good work with the Red Sox pitching staff. Like, Chris Sale liked having him catch for him because he just was great with the pitchers. So he was good to have around in that regard as well. Eduardo Nunez, another player that they acquired for this team, he was acquired in 2017. Third base had been a bit of a mess for the Red Sox, so to shore things up, they acquired him. He had started off when he first came to Boston hitting really well. He was hitting .321 at first. Didn't repeat those numbers in 2018, but Alex Cora started him a lot in postseason games, and he was definitely not the most valuable piece, I would say, but he definitely had his moments. Steve Pearce, we know how important he was, acquired from the Blue Jays in June 2018, and he is one of the best lefty hitters in the game at the time. And the Red Sox go and get him and say, yeah, we're going to bring him to try to help him get us to a World Series championship. He came over from the Blue Jays for infield prospect Santiago Espinal, and he was an absolute godsend for the Red Sox, hitting both lefties and righties. And let me tell you, how much fun was this? I mean, World Series MVP Steve Pearce, I don't think anybody would have seen that coming, but he was so good for the Red Sox that it made it so worth bringing him here. Rick Porcello, acquired from the Tigers in 2014, certainly had his ups and downs, but he did win the Cy Young in 2016, and he served as a good kind of more lower end starter for the Red Sox in 2018 because they still did have, David Price and Chris Sale on the team, but he was somebody who the Red Sox acquired and was able to be a good piece of the puzzle during that season. Eduardo Rodriguez, acquired from the Orioles in 2014, another big piece of the rotation who helped the Red Sox to maintain that level of consistency at a high level in 2018. Because if you think about the starting rotation, having Erod in there, he wasn't their best starter, but he wasn't their worst. He definitely contributed a lot and brought a lot to the table. Obviously, the famous Chris Sale trade from the White Sox in December 2016, the Red Sox gave up a few prospects for him, most notably Yoan Moncada and Michael Kopech. And at the time of the trade, Moncada was the number one prospect in baseball, and Kopech was number 30. So the Red Sox knew that they were giving up a lot to get him, but we got Chris Sale in his prime, and we're pretty lucky to say that. The guy was absolutely dominant when he helped the Red Sox to win that World Series. So those were all the trades that the Red Sox made. They also had a plethora of free agent signings like Brian Brazier, JD Martinez, who they signed for 5 years, $110 million. Mitch Moreland for 2 years, $13 million. David Price, 7 years, $217 million. And then they also acquired players through international free agency like Xander Bogaerts, who they signed in 2009 for a bonus of $410,000. Rafael Devers in August 2013, $1.5 million bonus. And also notable players that were on the roster, Brian Johnson, Zue Lin, Dustin Pedroia, who unfortunately was hurt but was part of the team, Drew Pomeranz, Tyler Thornburg, Stephen Wright. Lots of players whose names were on that team that I'm sure you might have forgotten about because they didn't play as much. But the point with saying all that is that's a good mix of homegrown talent, being aggressive in trades to acquire players, and also being aggressive in free agency. And that free agency part and lack of spending there on proven veteran talent, that's the part where the Red Sox don't align with the Dodgers. Because I think they've done a really good job the last few seasons of investing in their farm system, making sure the homegrown talent is taken care of, and that those guys who have the potential to be very good are going to come up and be very good. And they've also executed some trades to help them, like bringing in Garrett Crochet. But it's that lack of spending a lot of big value money in free agency that doesn't put the Red Sox at that level that the Dodgers are at right now. And that's the overarching theme of this is the Red Sox need to be willing to spend more in free agency. And how can they respond to everything the Dodgers are doing? How can they make their 2025 season one that they know fans will be happy about? I'm going to be talking about that next. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for some same-day coverage of up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. SelectQuote is great. It will be a lifesaver to get you the best life insurance. No pun intended. So make sure that you head to that today because it's so important to have the right policy that works well for you and your family. Blake Snell, Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, pending this goes through. Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki. Everybody wants to play for the Dodgers. Guys want to come to LA because they have seen the winning culture and winning roster that the Dodgers have built. And they want to go there because they want to win. And why would I blame them for that? I'd want to go to a winning team too if I were in Major League Baseball. So they have loaded up their roster with tons of talent. And some of that money, by some, I mean a lot, especially for a guy named Shohei Ohtani, was deferred. So by them deferring a lot of that money, that's what's allowing them to be able to have acquired all these players that they have brought on this offseason. Because if there was a rule about how much money gets deferred and the Dodgers can't go and defer pretty much all of Ohtani's contract, and they're forced to pay more of it now when he's in the league, then they don't have as much financial flexibility to be able to sign every free agent under the sun. So the reasoning for them being able to still load up on talent now is because they aren't spending a whole lot of money now on these superstars, but that will come back to bite them later on when these guys aren't in the league anymore and these deferral payments start to set in and they still have to pay these guys and their payroll is going to be crazy high and they can't really afford to have a superstar at every position on their roster. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you're everybody else. That light is not going to be for a while, but good for them for committing to winning. And I want to see the Red Sox commit to winning. So how can they respond? How can they go and at least have an offseason that's respectable to at least try to get them in a position to be a top team in the American League? Go and sign more free agents. Lock in a right-handed bat like Alex Bregman. Lock in another high leverage reliever. Everybody is asking for this. But the problem is that the Red Sox have now again missed out on Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates, of course, thanks to the Dodgers. So their time is ticking here. Guys are going to be signing places. And if the Red Sox are not aggressive enough, they're going to miss out on everybody. And the biggest thing for me that I like about Alex Bregman is, yes, I do understand the Red Sox have prospects coming up. They have Christian Campbell, they have Marcelo Meyer, and they already have Vaughn Grissom, who people presume will be the everyday second baseman to start the season. But you can't continue to wait around for every prospect because you don't know how every prospect is going to pan out. You want to go after the sure thing. And the reason I brought up a lot of these guys that are on the Dodgers roster is because they stacked that roster with talented guys with experience, guys who they know what they're getting. The Dodgers roster right now is not just a bunch of homegrown players. They have also brought in a bunch of guys that have been around Major League Baseball that they know have what it takes to win. And that's the difference right now between the Red Sox and Dodgers, is that the Red Sox are still shying away from spending a lot of money on free agent contracts. And that is the next thing that the Red Sox need to be willing to do. They can change the narrative surrounding John Henry and ownership and the idea of them being cheap by going in and actually spending money and signing a couple players to solidify this roster. If they do that, then I can happily be excited about the mix of free agent players they acquired via trade, and players that are homegrown that they've developed through their system and are going to be on this team for years to come. It'd be hard to not be excited about all of that if they go out and they spend money on a couple big free agents. And the reason I brought up the 2018 roster is because that had a great balance of all of those things. And the Red Sox were amazing in 2018 and nobody was beating them, and they were very clearly the best team in the sport all year long, and it led to them winning a World Series championship. So I want to see the Red Sox try to get back to that in some capacity, and I feel like John Henry is just still shying away from really pulling the trigger and actually putting the Red Sox over the top, because it's a situation where, yes, you could say they were trying. They tried. They gave Juan Soto an offer. They gave Max Fried an offer. But are they really trying hard enough to the point where they would be willing to make sure they have the final say? Would they be willing to go and offer a little bit more money to make themselves the no doubt team that that player will go to? That's the part that I feel like they are not doing, is they'll make an offer and then they'll settle for it. And if the player goes elsewhere, they'll come back and say at least they made an offer. Can't blame themselves because the player chose to go elsewhere. But during negotiations, I want to know if the Red Sox are sitting there saying, we'll add more to this offer to make sure you come to Boston. I think there are other teams that are persistent like that, but I'm not really getting that vibe from the Red Sox front office based on everything I'm hearing. And that's what they need to do more of if they want to be a contending team. The Dodgers are an unbelievable baseball team, and they'll likely, as long as they're healthy, have an unreal season in 2025, but you really don't know. Baseball is such an unpredictable sport, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to win on any given day. You don't know when the playoffs come around, what you're going to get from each of your competitors. So the Dodgers are that team that everybody's going to be looking up to, but the Red Sox can make themselves a no doubt contender in the American League. They just are afraid to make those types of decisions of bringing in those no doubt players that would help them to really formulate a contending roster. So I want to see them do that. I want to see them start to act more like the big market team that they are. Act more like the Dodgers. Start spending money. You have it, and you don't have to do all these crazy deferred payments if you don't want to. Like, you can try to balance it out with paying some now, but go and get 2 players, another high leverage reliever, and a right-handed bat. Then the roster could really feel a lot more complete heading into this season. So that's what I'm hoping for from the Red Sox. But while we hope for that, please be sure to check out Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully. He will keep you up to date on all things going on across Major League Baseball. So if you're interested in staying in the loop on that, follow his show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I do appreciate you making my show your first listen of every day. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.